I saw on the calendar that at the Ocean Gate Zen Center there is an upcoming Jukai on Saturday,
Yeah.
and I'd imagine there's a lot of preparation both on your part as the leader and the facilitator of that service, but also for the person that's participating. So I just wanted to know how that's all going and what the experience of Jukai is like at the Ocean Gate Zen Center.
Well, Jukai is when people enter the field of Soto Zen, they make a commitment. So before then, they practice for a while and they get to know us, they get to know our community. It's not a formal commitment to a teacher, even though one teacher gives you the precepts, but it's really making a firm commitment to the Buddha way, to the Soto Zen way, entering the lineage of the ancestors in a way, attaching yourself to it, and basically saying, this is what I want, this is the way I want to live my life. The people, we have Dharma study groups, we have precept study groups, usually led by lay members of our Sangha, but sometimes by the two novice priests that we have. But I really like our senior lay Sangha members to do it because it gives a really full, easy discussion for people. And they go through the precepts for, I don't know, 8 weeks or so, and then we have it again. People can retake that discussion group with different people. And then we have a ceremony in which I give a name to a person, and that name is based on my knowing them. So knowing what they, a quality about them that is in present life very rich and a resource for them, and then a kind of aspiration. So the second name, which is if you look at a Rakusu, I'll put the name, the date, and then usually some kind of a quote or something that has to do with them. And they get a lineage paper, which in our Sangha, they actually write out themselves. So it's not just something that's printed and given to them. We have a template with the bloodline on it, and then they write and trace in all of the ancestors. So they have more of a connection to the Kechamiyaku, to the lineage paper, and then my name and their new Buddhist name. So they receive a Kechamiyaku and Rakusu, and we also give them like a paper that has their name and the characters, and also each character, has different meanings. We want them to have a full understanding of the different meanings of the character. So, for example, um, one of the one of the characters that I'm using for this person, one of the people I'm doing on Saturday, is say, which means quiet, but it also means settled. It means calm. It means, it's like the quality of quiet is not like, you know, nervous quiet. It's rich quiet. So that's what we do, and then we have a ceremony, and then everybody comes, family comes, Sangha members come, we do the ritual. It's a beautiful ritual where people recite the precepts and then they're given this. It's quite moving. And then we have a reception and people hang out, and we're a very welcoming temple. We're very, that's one of the main things about us, that we want people to feel like they can come in and take their place without anxiety, which doesn't mean we're not precise about the forms. And I will say, if you practice at Sokoji, you know the spirit of, please come, you know, we welcome you as you are. You don't have to like get all frightened that you're going to do something wrong. Somebody will help you. It's, it's easy. Come, try it out. Come, I say the spirit of Zazen is a spirit of welcoming everything to this moment. So, we hang out together afterwards. We have cake. We sit around and chat, and it's a happy time. It's a happy occasion.
Certainly sounds like it, and it's wonderful that you facilitate not just like these momentous occasions, but also to these really rich sangha experiences where it really does feel like yeah, there's the service, there's the zazen component to it, and I mean the ritual forms that are precise and that they are attended to and cared for. But there's also these cake, cake time is very important, and sangha
Yeah,
time is really important, and getting to
yeah,
know, especially as you're about to consider dharma names
yeah,
and someone else's, for the participant's sake, for the person that is attending to their precepts and to sussing out their relationship to them and their commitment to Zen in particular within a lineage. It's just great to have those times of uh, off times. There's
yeah,
the focus on, but then there's
yeah.
the
And
breathing. Yeah,
yeah, and we this is a lay temple. I have ordained two priests, and we have another priest that is ordained by somebody else but lives near us and is a very important member of our sangha. But we want it's really important that people understand that their whole life is zazen. Their whole life is a Zen practice, and zazen is central. Um, and when we do the forms, we're delivering ourselves to a sacred event together as a mandala. You can't be a teacher without students. you know, you, it's a, it's, it's everybody's spirit comes together to create this nourishing time for all of us. And so we don't, we don't take care of the rituals to perfect them or do them right. It's not about nervousness and getting them right. It's about caring for something that's been given to you. So you want to take care of it. You want to respect that. You want to receive that in a way that that honors what you've been given.
I really I appreciate you kind of continuing to clarify and talk about that approach to ritual, because there is something very powerful about that latter approach that is not steeped in nervousness or
Uh-huh.
rigidness or strictness. There's that
Yeah.
love that coming out of a place of love, because just thinking about an example, and I hope this is an apt metaphor, but just like if you're presenting your a child, a kid, with like their birthday cake with the candles and everything, if
Yeah.
you're just kind of like like you're just really
Yeah. Yeah.
jittery
Yeah.
about it, and then you place it in
Yeah.
front of them, it could be the kid could get stressed out, or like everyone else
Yeah. Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But if you come from a place of love where it's like, I really care for this cake with all the flames glowing,
Yeah.
um of course there's things to care about and make sure that the wind doesn't get to it first, but you want to come with a smile, you want to come with a
Yeah.
place of excitement and
Yeah.
love
Yeah. Yeah.
where that
Yeah.
will make the kid feel like they're receiving a gift rather than
That's
a
I
ball
think
of
that's a
energy.
great I think that's a great example. And I think when you do that, um, like Shinchu and I spend a lot of time with the Japanese because we're Kokusai Fukyoshin, we're international teachers, we're registered in Japan. So, I went to Eiheiji and Sojiji and did Suisei and that's like so awesome, really, literally. Um, but the spirit is a spirit of love, a spirit of care. And so, for example, when we did the Jukai, which is a, a different kind of Jukai, it's I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to take too much time here with this, but uh, uh, we had, I think, 50 people who came to do the ritual, which is a 3-day ritual, and 50 priests, or maybe it was 100 people and 100 priests, I can't remember, but it was filled Zenchuji. And there were all these rituals, and it was magical. It was so powerful and so beautiful. And um, taking the precepts is an esoteric event. It's not like signing up to be good. That's a part of it, but it's about recognizing that your heart mind is the heart mind of the precepts. And so when you listen deeply and enter deeply into this practice, you align your being with the precepts, and it becomes obvious what to do, you know? So this diving in, you 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 take absolute care, and you keep learning about how to do the rituals. You know, for example, the Jukai, there's one place when you're doshi, when you're, you know, kind of doing you're the central priest in the ritual, where sometimes you bow at 90 degrees and sometimes you bow like this. And Akiba Roshi literally took my head and said, "No, you bow at 90% here." But it wasn't, but it was a loving gesture. It was like, this is, I know you care about this and you want to do it fully. So this is the way you do it. Anyway.
Wow. Well, and I was actually going to ask about your experience doing Jukai, and like, I don't know if during the preparations for Jukai for someone else, as a facilitator and as the leader of the service, if you're reminded every time about how it was for you, and just if you wouldn't mind offering just like what your personal experience was like. I don't know if there was some nervousness. I don't know if there was something that you find particularly moving to this day about it. I was just wondering what that general experience like was for
When
you.
I did Jukai?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's been quite a while since I did Jukai. And, but I knew it was really important for me. I was living in a Buddhist community in England, and I came back, and I was going to go back to that Buddhist community. And I came back specifically to do Jukai because I really wanted to enter the path fully. And it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot. For me, it was a very important step, and I think it is for most people. I don't think I was nervous. I think I knew what I wanted, and I just did it. And 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 it was super important to me.
And what made you want to pursue, or like did you have Buddhism in your life earlier on, or was that something that like that you were inspired to do later on in your life, and then develop that commitment further? But I was just wondering how you found Buddhism in the first place.
Well, I'm from Oakland, and my parents and my grandparents were all Oaklandites. So I don't think you could live in the Bay Area and not be exposed to Buddhism. I think you'd have to try really hard. And my family was, my grandparents were Unity, not Unitarian, but Unity, which meant they respected all religions. So I was raised in a um, open-minded Republican household. Um, so I don't know when I first encountered Buddhism. It just was like a part of my life because I lived in this diverse place with different kinds of people. Um, and um, I read some about Buddhism when I was in my teens, and but I was very political. Um, and then later on, I became, I could never understand Christianity. It just didn't make any sense to me. I didn't think it was bad or anything. It was just like a foreign concept. Later on in my 20s, I became very political, and I came out as a lesbian, and I was super involved, um, bullhorn and all that stuff. And and then I took some time off. I went back to school later, and a friend of mine wanted to go to the Zen Center of Los Angeles, but I was super critical. I was like, all right, who are these men in black, and what are they up to, and what is this religion? And I sat saw it, and I didn't particularly like it, um, but I was hooked. And so, I'll tell you a quick story, but I was still like, okay, you know, prove your, prove it. So I went to a woman priest, and I said, I'm a lesbian, I'm a feminist, and I'm not going to leave anything at the door. So, is there a place for me in Zen? And she said, Zen is about being completely who you are. And I was like, okay, all right, I can do that. And then I moved back to San Francisco and I started practicing at Hartford Street Zen Center, which I don't know if you knew. My first teacher was Isan Dorsey. And it was basically all gay men and me. And I was like super macho about my practice. Somebody told me once I was the only man at Hartford Street. So I just dove in, and then I decided I might want to be ordained, and I decided to pack up in my truck, drive around the country, visit Zen centers. I had been practicing also at San Francisco Zen Center some, but I was keeping my distance because it wasn't a very healthy place at that time. And I ended up moving to England to a Buddhist community there. And then came back. And I came back to go to Tassajara. I came back to train. And that's when I met Shinshu.
And and uh that's an incredible story. I mean, like the fact that you what a wonderful answer that you got to your question
I
about
know.
what
I know. I
perfect
wish
answer.
I could remember that woman's name because she changed my life, you
Yeah.
know? Because it's a koan, like who are you completely? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. And on the one hand, it's an invitation, in the sense of like, yes, you're welcome, but also to, yeah, it's that koan element too, I
Yeah,
suppose, of just like, and who are you exactly? And what does that
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Who are
Um,
you? Who
yeah.
am I? Yeah,
Well, so just if we can, like your experience of kind of traveling around visiting other Zen centers, what was that like during that time for you? Like, did you find some teachers resonated with you that you've kind of that has lasted all this time, where you feel like you continue to incorporate it into your practice, or was it just kind of like an interesting thing of like, oh, that's an interesting take on ritual, that's an interesting take on setting up a temple environment?
well, I met some really wonderful teachers. Maureen Stewart, I practiced with her in Boston, and she was really meaningful to me. She really inspired me. Um, Joko Beck, I sat sashimi with her. I just kept up a relationship with her for a long time. Um, she was like tough. She was so tough. Um, and I visited other Zen centers, and what I found was I wanted to do that because I wanted to experience other places other than Hartford Street and San Francisco Zen Center. Um, and then I was on a Buddhist backpacking trip in England, and I was invited to join a community that was forming there, which was diverse. Stephen Batchelor was there, and Martine, and other people from other, and that was a really good experience because they were way senior to me, and I benefited from their teachings a lot. But in the end, I felt like I should go back to San Francisco Zen Center to train, especially at Tassajara. I wanted to train at Tassajara.
And I've yet to go, but I mean, you see these pictures and you hear these stories, and it seems like a particularly important place for just about everybody that goes, especially for training purposes, but also to
Yeah,
just for what that landscape and that environment just
yeah,
allows. It's just this pretty
yeah.
special place. What was it like meeting Shinshu there, and what was it like then going from there and kind of starting to think about going into counseling and various other things like that? I mean,
Oh,
because
yeah,
at some point, I know you went you got yourself the master's in counseling, and then also a PhD in Buddhist and Zen studies. So I was just wondering how
yeah.
your time in Tassajara went into some of those parts.
Well, I met Shinshu at City Center before I left, and she had come to Zen Center when I was in England. And then I went to my first practice period anyway. I said bye bye, and she said bye bye, good luck, and that meant a lot to me because it meant practice was primary. And then I came back and we had a year together at City Center, and then we both went down to Tassajara for 4 years. Um, it's kind of hard to talk about Tassajara because I'm really glad you bring up the landscape because it's an ancient place. Um, I used to think about, like, metaphorically, an old woman up on the hill on the other side, kind of laughing at us in our little black ants going around the valley. Like, this is just the latest iteration of this valley, which the landscape, the light, the feeling of the place is powerful. And then, to get up, in those days we didn't have any heat, and we walk through the snow for anyway, um, to be with the elements, to get up in the dark, to see the sky, to sit in silence, um, to be with people you wouldn't necessarily choose to be with, and to be together in such intimacy, um, to hear the Dharma in that setting is just so powerful. And one of the practice periods, I was anja, or attendant, to my teacher Sojun, which was, you know, I didn't really want to be his personal attendant. Like, as a feminist, I told him, I said I would never do this for any other man. Like, I was scrubbing his zoris every day, you know. But I learned something about intimacy with a teacher. I learned that um, unspoken, to hear what's unspoken. And I think that's part of what the Valley is about. And then at one point, and I went back to Bishuso some years later, but I also saw the way we stumble, the way we and others, we create problems together. And I became very curious about how to support people to enter practice, and especially to encounter the teachings of emptiness in a healthy, deep way. So I left and we went back to City Center, and I spent another year there. And there were a couple of things. One is, I realized I wasn't going to be a lifer at San Francisco Zen Center. It was just not good for me. It's not a bad place, don't get me wrong, but it just was not right for me. And I also had this deep curiosity about how how are humans? What are humans? How do we work? What can we do? Why do we cause ourselves problems? What is that? And so, being a good Zen student, I had to get a master's degree in that. And I also knew I needed a job. I needed to work, and I wanted good work. So I got a master's degree in counseling, and started teaching a little bit where I got my counseling degree. And then an opportunity opened up there to do a kind of creative PhD. And so I combined Dogen studies with taking what I had learned in psychology, in particular, one particular theory that was compatible with a Buddhist understanding of the self, and taking that knowledge and placing it within a Buddhist context, not trying to understand Buddhism from psychological context, but saying, okay, this is how humans work. How can that help me understand how to support people in practice? And what are the conditions in a sangha that help people? What are the conditions in teaching that help people? What is that about? And so that's what I did my dissertation on, and that I wrote a book about it too later. So
And is that trust realization in the self in Soto Zen practice? I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
In case anyone's interested, that is published by University of Hawaii Press. You can find it there through their link there, but also to I think wherever books are sold. But yeah, no, that's a very I feel like that is a wonderful thing that you found a compatibility within one method of counseling and psychology and Dogen, and then that you were able to through a PhD program and through your own career work, you were able to find a way to deepen understanding into Dogen and then to be able to share it and to bring it into
yeah,
both counseling and into your work
yeah.
with people on their path. Uh,
Well, when I worked when I worked, I didn't work as a therapist for that long. I'm a teacher. I come from a lineage of teachers. I'm just like, and when you're a therapist, you're not a teacher. You're a therapist, and your job is not to teach the Dharma, even though the Dharma informed what I did. But I was teaching some, and then I had the opportunity to start at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, and then I was in heaven because it brought everything together. I could teach ministry, I could use what I understood in psychology to help chaplains, ministers, teachers, priests um, understand how to deliver the Dharma and support people in their practice and their way um, on a human scale so that it's, I don't know how to describe it, but trust is essential. And you have to build a trusting relationship and have a trusting environment. And that doesn't mean it's safe because a teacher can never be fully tamed. If you don't have something wild about you, um, you're not breaking the convention. But to do that, you have to build trust and you have to welcome people as they are and not put them in some kind of Procrustean bed where they have to lop off parts of themselves to fit some predetermined thing. What I see is that doesn't work in the end. It just doesn't work. People either battle with the teachings because they're too frightened to enter the field of emptiness, or they construct some kind of a pseudo being that doesn't fully mature.
I don't know if it's exactly what Okamura Roshi had in mind when he said this, because I watched an interview that he gave a bit ago about how he learned to abandon this sense of like being a good boy, and I wonder if that's also part of what you're saying about like the whether or not you're maybe intimidated or otherwise not committing for various reasons to a Buddhist path, but also to if you create some sort of like version of yourself that does fit, but that's not wholly who you are,
Yeah,
then it kind of might disrupt the
yeah.
practice.
I mean, I think all of us start that way in some way. We long for this jewel to be real to ourselves. We don't know how to do it. So we kind of first we start out thinking we should change ourselves, and that's fine. Um, but as you really have an honest dialogue with the teachers and your teaching, you you need, in my opinion, you need to build trust in order to pour yourselves into the Dharma and be willing to be changed by it. So if you don't have trust, you will not fully pour yourself in. And then, but like me going like this, if you don't start with you should ask fierce questions. You should ask and you should pay attention to the answers. Because if the answers don't feel real, then or if it feels like it's a bunch of crap, you know, just like these puffed up, I'm the special one. Everybody wants somebody that's escaped. But in our way, that's not the way it works. So you build trust and then you dialogue and you test. Not like this, but really engage. And there's something unspoken that comes, something that understand that your mind can't you don't it doesn't need to be your logic, because the logic of the Dharma is not your logic. So when you have this organic trust, something shifts, and you have to find your own voice, because if you don't, you don't grow up. You know, my teacher, Sojun Roshi, was, we used to call him the Teddy with teeth, because the people who weren't his students thought he was like this really nice guy. You know, here's this old Jewish guy in Berkeley, he's so nice. But when you were his student, he expects you to grow up. He expects you to figure it out, and he wanted you to do this. And it's like Trungpa Rinpoche used to say that your mantra should be Om Grow Up Svaha. So I think there's this way in which you engage and you find your own voice. You have your own empowerment. If you don't do that, and it's not ego power, if you don't do that, then you haven't really digested things in your body. You're just sitting around the edges. So, you know, we show up wanting to be good, and then we test things, we learn that that's not the point, and then we become alive. That's what I think.
And thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's inspiring for me just to kind of like continue to bring my whole self to something and really be not in that kind of clinical kind of arms crossed a student way, but kind of really be present for my own position in the inquiry,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
bring myself fully to it. But and I was wondering, just for anybody who is maybe on the fence or in this position where they're gonna have the opportunity to trust in walking their path a little bit more committedly, or take that one step to attend a uh, some sort of meditation center, you know, be it
yeah,
Zen or
yeah,
being otherwise. What would you do to kind of help encourage, or is there anything that you can say more broadly to anybody that is looking to take that step that is a little wary of it in the first
yeah.
place?
Well, I have two parts to that. The first part is, um, if you're interested in going to, first of all, if you're interested in the Dharma or anything, go a bunch of places. Just go. You know, and if you're not comfortable, if you can't ask questions, if you don't see people that can ask questions, um, then I don't mean you don't have any nervousness or anything, but it should speak to your heart, and it should feel like it's sane. The teacher should feel sane and not puffed up and trying to drag you into some kind of weird thing. It should be alive. People should feel pretty happy, you know, and normal, whatever normal is. I don't know how to say this except trust your instincts and don't fall for some kind of elevated story. Um, you should be inspired by the teacher. There should be something that makes you want more, but you shouldn't have to leave yourself at the door. And and try a bunch of places and see what works. The other thing is you should be able to continue to be yourself and not have to sign on to something. For example, we have long-term, really dedicated practitioners who've never taken the precepts because they don't want to sign on in that way. That's okay. You don't have to do anything in particular. Um, there's people that feel that lay people are down here and priests are up here. No, lay people and priests are like this. It's a different path. It's not one's better than the other. So being supported to dive deeply into your own life and practice your own life, I think is super important. But you're going to be nervous. I mean, everybody's a little nervous, but test places out. And when I started practicing seriously at San Francisco Zen Center, my father said to me, "Where's the money go?" And I said, "Okay, Dad, this is how it works. You don't have to pay to go here. You don't, nobody's asking you to, like, anyway, it's like a church or a temple, you know? So um, use your common sense."
And thank you for that. I mean, I particularly enjoyed hearing about how you can get all worried and bent out of shape even before you step into a place because you might be worried about the dynamic, the leadership dynamic. Because I if I walk into the space and how I am when I walk into the space, if that doesn't impress, or maybe even if it maybe makes the leadership scoff at me, even if you're just imagining these things, your take on how there's this level playing field between the leadership and with a layperson makes it feel like there's this acknowledgement of everyone having their own path. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily create a hierarchy. Yeah, I mean, there are people that have a little bit more study and know how to the functions of
yeah,
ritual, but it does take the layperson to trust in that to make the sangha happen too, and that's a fundamental component of Dharma practice. So thank you for that. I mean, that's a really it's kind of inspiring too. It just kind of makes you feel like everyone can be their full selves, because the more that you are your full self, the more you are in line with your own journey, and so is everyone else. So
yeah.
that's
And y- Soto Zen may not be your journey. You know, go to Tibetan centers, go to Vipassana centers, go to the local Jewish temple, go wherever you want to go. This is, it's Soto Zen is just one gate. It's just one gate. And if it's your gate, go for it. And you might take a while. It's like Rabbi Alan Liu was a really good friend of Norman Fisher's. And he was at Tassajara sewing a kesa for priest ordination. And he said, "I remembered something. And what I remembered was I'm a Jew." And he left. He remained really good friends with San Francisco Zen Center, but he became a rabbi. And there's no, you know, there's one way where you just go someplace and then you get real critical and you say, "Oh, that's not for me." And then you go someplace else and you get, if that happens a few times, you might want to look at yourself. But to really feel like, no, this doesn't really, like I taught at Gampo Abbey 3 years, led youth datuns with, first year was with Ani Pema and then Ani Palmo. I can't remember maybe the third one was with Ani Trime. Anyway, um, and I learned so much. It was so great to be there, and Pema was a wonderful teacher and support to me. Um, but after a month, I was like ready for a Zendo. The red and the horns and it was great, and I learned so much, but it's not my home. So, you know, you should
yeah.
just pay attention to those things.
But that's wonderful too that you have this openness too, because I think that sometimes people, I mean, maybe this is just an American mindset or otherwise, but there is this sense, or at least like within the white American Buddhist convert sense of just like this is the lane, and this is how there are different teams here, and you can't play for different teams, or there isn't integration. It has to be this or
Yeah,
that, the other thing, just like before you get into it. But it's wonderful that you're an example of someone that goes into different spaces and can feel like they can be part of it. They can be nurtured by it, but then at the same time, you recognize for yourself what is home,
yeah.
what is true,
I
and
think that's really important. Is especially in interfaith dialogue, which I did a lot when I was teaching at IBS and part of the GTU, is when I'm home in my own way, I can let you be home in your own way. I don't have to make you my way. And in fact, it truncates interfaith dialogue when we think everybody has to be the same because we're no longer learning from someone else. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
no, no, no. That's a really wonderful point, and so I appreciate you bringing that up. And I did actually want to kind of get into more of your experiences with IBS, because I know that you developed the Soto Zen certificate there, which I am very happy to have participated in during my education there. But you also got off the ground the Buddhist chaplaincy graduate program,
Yeah.
and just with what we were talking about earlier about how this was a major effort for you, but also too, it felt like it hit you square in all your different interests. Like it
Yeah.
just kind of like where it's all kind of a confluence happened. And so I was just wondering what it was like to develop that program and to be in this interfaith of, within the Buddhist Dharmic sense,
Yeah.
environment where you are engaging and speaking with people from different backgrounds.
Well, I started teaching there when Taigen Leighton moved to Chicago, so I was just teaching adjunct teaching Zen classes, and then they decided that they wanted to start a Buddhist chaplaincy program, so they asked me if I would do that. And it just so happened when I was getting my hours for my therapy license that I had done a unit of clinical pastoral education at UCSF. Um, I wanted to do that because it combined my priest identity with my counseling experience, and it gave me hours that California would recognize anyway. Um, so uh, I felt like this was a way to support people to express their practice in the world. And there's a great need for it because a lot of people who are suffering in prison and hospitals, in places, they want to reach out. They don't necessarily want a Christian chaplain. They don't necessarily want a Jewish chaplain. And they might be Buddhist or vaguely Buddhist or a nun, but mostly they're willing to accept a Buddhist chaplain. Sometimes because they think Buddhists don't have any religion at all, and sometimes because they actually have a feeling for the Dharma. So there's a great need for Buddhist chaplains, and I felt like I would be serving the greater Buddhist community by developing this. And also because a core of what I was doing was developing Buddhist pastoral care classes, ministry classes. So the all the people that were there who were Jodo Shin, which, by the way, is a marvelous tradition, and just I can't say enough good about it, um, would come because they hungered for ministry classes. And then students from other GTU schools, from the Episcopal school, from the Jesuit school, from the Unitarians, from, would come into the classes because they wanted a take on ministry that was from a Buddhist perspective. Um, I have to say, I don't, there's only been maybe when I was Shuso at Tassajara, I was that happy. I was so happy there. It is as you know, it is an incredible place, IBS. It's so open and warm and serious. And I got to teach with these colleagues who, the dean trained as a Shingon priest, and then we had Jodo Shin priests, and I mean, it was like this constant soup of rich Dharma, and then the opportunity to teach other people outside of the Dharma, um, ground them a little bit so that they had some sense of when they were serving somebody who was Buddhist, or as a Christian minister engaging with Buddhists in their community, they would have some sense of what the Dharma is and knock off some of the goofy ideas people have. So to nurture people to go out, there's alums at, like one of my alums served at UCSF as a chaplain all through the pandemic. And he's a Soto Zen practitioner. He practiced at Berkeley Zen Center. And I used to call him the Bruce Springsteen of chaplaincy. He worked at a warehouse before he came to IBS. I mean, different people with different, really wanting to serve. So it was a it was an honor to be able to develop that program and to see people sincerely wanting to center themselves in the Dharma. One of my primary goals was I wanted people who went through this program to really be rooted in the Dharma, to understand the Dharma, because without that, they don't have the basis for their ministry. And they can't talk intelligently they can't meet other chaplains who are trained theologically as equals. They're kind of loosey-goosey over here. So we seriously train people in the Dharma, and then they get the skills that they need as well. So it was a marvelous place to work.
I'm so happy to hear that that was such a rich and just a bright moment in your life, and it rivaling being Shuso at Tassajara. I mean, just
Yeah,
it being such a moving and fundamental component of your journey. And so and honestly, I mean, like I personally didn't do the Buddhist chaplaincy program. I did that certificate, but the in Soto Zen. But I have many friends, and this is part of the beauty of the IBS education, is that you are in classes with people on different tracks doing
yeah,
different things, and everyone was getting so much out of their chaplaincy program. And it was also really inspiring to see them go right from doing that program and during that program and having some trainings in hospitals or in different positions
yeah.
where they would find themselves. So so for you made quite an impact, and that impact is still echoing out. So thank you for putting so much work and love into something so important. And also too, I mean, just because you hinted at it, and this kind of maybe goes with a little bit of our interfaith conversation, but um, when you started working with the Institute of Buddhist Studies, which historically is a Jodo Shinshu seminary, and now it's kind of widened out to incorporate a little bit
Yeah.
more. Um, was that your first time experiencing Jodo Shinshu up close like that, or was it?
It
And then,
was.
and what made it resonate with you so much?
It was the first time. I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't really know much about it at all. And I'd never really had been in close quarters with anybody that was a Jodoshin practitioner. And I felt, first of all, trust and understanding the trust and all the different dimensions of what trust is, provisional trust, what I call absolute trust, which is the living vitality of your practice is trust. Anyway, um, there's this tradition that's all about faith. Now, it may not be the same as Soto's faith and Soto Zen, but there's remarkable touch points. And I felt the emphasis on gratitude was and acceptance was so palpable. And when I studied Shinran some and learned from my students, because some of my students were Jodoshin ministers who were finishing their degree, and I would serve on their committees. I felt like I could see Dogen in new ways, that I could hear something in them, in his teachings, that I hadn't really appreciated in the same way. And the emphasis on gratitude, the emphasis on faith, the emphasis um, on treating all people with respect. Um, I yes, I learned a lot, and there was a fellow who was a professor at one of the other graduate schools at the GTU, and he was also head of spiritual care at UCSF. His name was Peter Yuichi Clark, and he was a Baptist minister who also had a deep appreciation of Buddhism. And he came and gave a commencement speech once, and he said, when I studied Shinran, I heard things that Jesus had been trying to tell me all along. And I felt very comfortable at IBS because of the Japanese cultural thing. It suits me. Um, but also the spirit of the place is the spirit of Jodo Shin. So doctrinally, I learned things, kind of sparked questions that I hadn't asked before. Dialogues with especially Reverend Dr. David Matsumoto, and now Takashi Miyagi, and it's like, and also, um, you know, being a part of the Japanese system, uh, I felt an affinity with the training that the Jodoshin ministers were getting. So anyway,
Yeah,
mostly it was inspiration.
yeah, no, and I appreciate that dynamic element that you experience where doctrinally you learn things, but also too you just learned more about the spirit of Jodo Shinshu and how that impacts your your understanding of the Dharma. And it's amazing to see the correlation between how that impacted your understanding of some of the things that Dogen said, and then for that other person you mentioned how that helped Shinran helped. Um,
And also, I have to mention one other person was uh, Reverend Seigen Yamaoka, who was a former bishop of um, the Jodoshin, the BCA, and his office was right across from mine, and he was in his 80s, and he would just come by, and we would have these incredible conversations. I mean, he was an extraordinarily wise man, very humble, and so it was a privilege to be around this very humble, very ordinary, very wise man.
wow.
I wouldn't have cared what he was a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. But but that speaks to that. You both bringing your full selves to something and being able to share special dialogue that you can feel inspired by, but also too, yeah, it didn't matter where everyone was from but just they were very much fully themselves. You can
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
experience. No, that's such a special treat, and thank you again for all of the things that you did for the IBS community because it's continuing, and I've certainly benefited from it myself. And then I just had two more questions for you. I've really enjoyed our conversation a great deal, and I just have these two questions that are a little bit. One's about promotion, and then one's about just like kind of general advice here. But I wanted to see if there's anything that you wanted to promote. I know that Ocean Gate Zen Center. Which everyone can find on the internet with oceangatezen.org. There's a calendar of resources, a calendar and resources like teachings and chants and book lists and things like that. They're really helpful for anyone that's interested in learning more about Zazen. It's a really wonderful website, and it has a lot of different features on it. And also you have the book that we mentioned earlier, Trust, Realization, and the Self in Soto Zen Practice, published by University of Hawaii Press. And then also too, just because we were speaking about it, there is the Institute of Buddhist Studies, which is you can find online www.shin-ibs.edu. But if there's anything that you'd like to promote or get some eyes and ears on, or if there's something else that someone else is working on that you'd want people to know more about, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the website, because one of my efforts in putting that new website together was to give people a vision of Soto Zen that was welcoming and supportive. Just supportive, challenging. If you don't, if you're not challenged, you're not growing. But you can be challenged in a way that is encouraging instead of harsh. So you don't have to come to Ocean Gate Zen to explore the website and learn something about the Dharma. So I welcome people to do that. Um, uh, I think one other thing that I feel pretty strongly about, and that I is the Soto Zen certificate. And I really encourage people to consider education at a Buddhist seminary is fundamentally different than education at a strictly academic place, because it's about growing you as a practitioner as well as giving you the Dharma um, doctrine. So take a class, any class. You can audit. You don't have to take it, you don't have to pay a lot of money. Um, there's lots of scholarships. And I just really want, I just feel like it's so important for people to ground themselves in the teachings. And so I encourage everybody to do that. You don't have to be an academic to learn. Um, there's so many wonderful teachers out there. I'm concerned about young women feeling turned off to Zen because they keep hearing about bad things happening, and bad things do happen. I'm not gonna hide from that. We have to keep our eyes and ears open, all of us, and test the waters for anything that feels unwholesome, unhealthy. But please don't let all the stories that you hear keep you from entering a place. And the other thing I want to say is there are many wonderful male Zen teachers out there. So it hurts me that especially young women are just like, they don't want to go. And so I just want to say there's many wonderful places. And if you keep your spidey sense about you and pay attention to whether people feel sane and wholesome, I think you can learn a lot, even if you just go once or twice. So that's one thing that I care about saying. There's so many rich resources out there, but don't get too confused, because different traditions are different, and you can read this one and then it contradicts with that one, and then it's just like it doesn't all have to make sense or come into one little tidy bowl. Just find a place that you feel good about and just don't worry. If it doesn't all make sense, don't worry, because it's not going to.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I mean, like, part of my pursuit of my education at IBS was this question of like trying to answer like what is Zen really? Because like growing up, I would see Zen dry cleaners or Zen this and that and the other thing, and
Yeah.
and I was like,
Zen
what?
carriages.
Yeah.
Zen, oh, what I found was Zen cybersecurity.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, there you go.
yeah.
and I was like, well, how does Zen what makes this cybersecurity firm Zen? Like, what is that? Why are they using that word for it? And I find that pursuing that through going to different Zen centers or Zen temples and doing my certificate in Soto Zen, there's a more of a cute way of saying it where like I still don't know what Zen is, and can you ever really know, and that kind of thing. But like I know more about that answer to that question than I had before, and having that kind of curiosity and going in with uh, what you're kind of alluding to, what you had said, which was that openness that things don't have to make sense. It's like they don't have to make sense, and they might not make sense. But if you're curious about it, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't hold back. Like definitely dive in and explore it. So I appreciate your encouragement to look for things, but also to hold space for the fact that like things are going to be contradictory. Find what makes sense to you, and find a place that feels sane and safe and inspiring. So and then I
Well,
feel.
just
Go
can I
ahead.
add one more thing,
Yeah.
which is um, every the capitalist system will suck something out of just about anything and then sell it, and that's what happened to Zen. You know, Zen became misunderstood and redefined according to the needs of selling something and the needs of not actually, it's too scary to enter the tradition sometimes because it demands something of you. You have to think, you have to ask questions, always ask questions, and bring yourself to it. And it's much easier to think, oh, I can go off to some yaya land and everything's going to be okay. And that's what Zen became. Some, I don't know, serene, no, Zen practice is about your life. So, it's deeply confusing. It's deeply confusing. I used to kid my Jodoshin friends that Vipassana was, the, the ancient Theravada tradition got sucked up into be mindful at work so that you can produce more. Zen got sucked up into, Zen baby carriages, in some kind of Ziyaya land. And they're coming for Jodo Shin next. There's going to be a Pure Land spa. So it's very confusing. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for that. And I feel like that's an important advantage where you're not going to go to then be blissed out necessarily. I mean, hopefully you find some sort of happiness or some sort of like
Yeah.
enrichment in that way. But I mean, I'm relatively new to Zen, but I've done enough zazen to know that sometimes it's like a full on battle where you just just
Yeah,
sitting
yeah,
there, and it's not comfy. It's pretty
yeah.
it's a lot.
A
Um,
friend of mine said that at first Zazen is like turning a garbage disposal on backwards. But there is also, I want to support you in saying, there is a way of finding a stability that may be different than you thought.
Yeah, certainly. I love that. That's a wonderful metaphor, or that's a wonderful example. And I just wanted, I usually ask people if they're, if they have some advice for anyone that's just getting started. But I know that you've offered some really wonderful words of wisdom just now. But just for the sake of asking it, is there anything that you would want to um, share with somebody who is walking the Buddhist path that you would have wanted to have heard earlier on? And I know you've said some many wonderful things.
Yeah.
So if that suffices, that suffices. But I just wanted to offer it anyway.
Um, I would say, well, there's a couple of things. One is you won't get it right. So be patient, be respectful, be kind to yourself. And kind doesn't mean not having some guts to it. You should have some guts to it. You should have ferocity to asking the questions that really matter to you. Um, I was very, very tough when I began. I mean, I was super macho. And I'm not saying there wasn't some benefit to it, but that's kind of unnecessary. You know, Brother David Steindl-Rast said, discipline is following what you love. Discipline comes from the word disciple, which comes from the word pupil, which comes from following what you love so close that you can see yourself in your teacher's eye. So discover discipline that has to do with knowing what you love and following it as closely as you can. And take care of yourself. Take care of your own needs. Don't respect your own needs, and and don't go for what's counterfeit. Yeah, you know, enjoy yourself too. It's hard to be alive. It's hard to be a human. You know, it's not easy, and so you have to have good friends. Good friends are important and always important, and there's joy in the Dharma. If there's no joy, and that doesn't mean it's joy all the time, happy, happy, but if there's no joy, um, and I have one other thing. I have this picture that I keep here. Can you see it?
Yes.
This is after the Fukushima disaster. And this is a monk walking through the ruins, basically gasho, ringing a bell for all those who passed. So along with sincerity and joy, we pay attention to the world. And if our practice can be a source of solace, a source of courage, and a source of being able to make good trouble and face the world with all of its, right now, you can find a way to be in this world. Yeah, I think that's the final thing, is you can find a way to be in this world as it is.
Reverend Daijaku, thank you so much for sharing so much of your story, and for your encouragement and inspiring words as well. And no, it just is. You said some really beautiful things just now. So thank you for offering so much in that way, and for your work in facilitating the more Buddhist clinical pastoral work, and for your work with the IBS through the certificate in Soto Zen, and for having a space like Ocean Gate Zen Center that lets that answers that question that you asked before you began, which is, can you come completely as you are? And so thank you for making these spaces available, and for being with me today. So I really appreciate it.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this podcast. I'm sure it's a benefit to a lot of people.